This is Dave Ruark. I'm at the International Justice Mission, or IJM's, headquarters in Washington, D.C. And I have Kyleigh here with me, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her experience with working with International Justice Mission and with the price of life.
Yeah, my name is Kyleigh Jung, and it was very exciting to see Dave in prayer today because the price of life had such a big impact on my life, and I just never really felt I had the opportunity to share that with anyone. But let me backtrack a little bit and just tell you how this event even came to place in my life. I started out at Michigan State, but before that, I'd moved to Michigan from Ohio in high school and just went through a big time of rebellion where I was bitter at my parents for making me move and just didn't want to be there. And still, I would say,
and what was the state of your relationship with Jesus at that point?
I think I knew he was there, and still when things were tough, I would go to him, but I just had no intimate relationship with him at all and really wanted nothing to do with him. You know, my parents are very strong believers, and so because they were pursuing that, and they had used our excuse for moving as God has called us to be here, and so I was just bitter towards God and towards them for several years. So my senior year, I'd gone to a church camp and kind of recommitted my life, but still was kind of bitter and still had gotten involved with not a great group of friends, good people, but didn't make wonderful choices. And so as I was applying for colleges, my parents asked, were giving me a list, and I decided to apply to Wheaton College. It was a Christian school. I had good grades. It would be a great opportunity. Well, upon receiving the letter from them, I found out I'd been rejected, and so I was devastated. So I decided I would go to Michigan State. I'd gotten into the honors program there and decided, well, I guess I'll just go here for now. And so I ended up going to Michigan State, and the second day there I actually got in trouble for drinking, and so I just was not very happy. And I would say that was kind of my first wake-up call. And so I made some friendships there. I wasn't really involved with any Christian organizations, wasn't going to church even, but as I was walking through the hall, I saw the poster for the price of life. And so some reason...
In your dorm?
In my dorm. In Case dorm, in South Complex was where I was living. Something with the picture just caught my attention, and I decided that I was going to go. So I dragged someone with me. I still remember walking in and really being shocked at how big it was. I don't know if I was expecting a small meeting or really what I was expecting, but I walked in, and you had the opportunity to buy fundraiser tickets, and so I did that, and they were sharing a little bit about what the event was about because I really didn't know, and that they were raising awareness for sex trafficking issues and slavery around the world. So I wanted to hear more about that and walked into the room and was amazed at how much it was like The Price is Right. They had the wheel, they had the stands, they had basically everything, and so they're calling contestants up on stage, and they had prizes, an iPod or a Wii or lots of other different things like that. But instead, this was the catch. Instead of bidding on the iPod or bidding on the Wii or bidding on a bike, they showed videos of girls who were selling themselves for sex in Cambodia, men and women whose family had been sold into slavery in India, and they would have people try to guess the price of their life. And I remember as they showed this video and shared the cost of a 12-year-old girl's virginity, tears just started streaming down my face in a way that I just never experienced being that affected by something before. And probably for the majority of the event, I sat there and cried because my heart was just broken, and I didn't understand how I just didn't know about this. After being on mission trips and having parents who are pretty globally minded, a church who cares about global issues, but I'd never heard about sex trafficking and slavery still existing, and I was just in shock. So at that point, I walked away from the event, and I never really got any more information about the event at that point. IJM's name stuck out in my head, but I decided that I couldn't stay at Michigan State at that point in my life. I'd been interested in law. I didn't know what that meant, where that would take me, but after the event, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to get involved with something like this. I think that I can do something about it. This would be a much better way for me to give a voice and fight for something that I really care about. And there was just that question that had come up in the video that kept coming back to me of what if it were me? If I were that little girl that was being sold, if I were that person in slavery, I would want anyone to do something to rescue me. And so that question kept coming back to me and has kept coming back to me over and over again over the years.
And how How did all this affect your relationship with Jesus?
I think at that moment, I just started asking a lot more questions. I read one of Gary Haugen's books, The Good News About Injustice, and I decided, actually, I would say, so I took the spring semester off of college, and I went to Swaziland, Africa, and it was a mission trip. And so that time was just a time where I spent a lot of time with God. And I wouldn't say it was all, just feeling great, because I think I struggled a lot in that question of, God, how are you good and how are you sovereign amidst suffering? And that's been something that I've had to wrestle with for many years. In Africa, there was just the AIDS crisis, and there was a place called the Tree Line, which was just 2 trees, and men would sit, and it was in a slums area, and girls as young as 6 years old would go, and they'd be forced to go, and they'd have to sleep with these men, and their payment was a loaf of bread. And that's how they fed their family every day. And I remember at that point feeling really powerless, because we weren't there to bring justice necessarily. We were there to love the kids. We were there to meet their physical needs, such as, food and stuff like that, but we didn't really have any power in protecting them. And that was hard in my faith too, because I remember comparing to my childhood in the States. We would read the verse, when I am afraid I will trust in you, and you think to like fictional monsters under my bed. And when we're trying to tell the kids in the slums that, they're thinking, when I'm afraid, when I don't have anywhere to sleep at night, or when I have to go sell myself to this man, like, do they really trust in God? And that was a point where I really had to ask God, are you protecting them? But I drew so near to God in that time, and really began to ask the question of, God, what is your desire for my life? How are you going to use me? What is the purpose of life? And as I seek out my career, what direction should I head in? And so I ended up leaving Africa and going to Wheaton College, and I designed my own major there, which was centered around global justice. And so I really just looked into sex trafficking and the demand for sex, and how American culture has just played a big role in that, in increasing the demand from commercials to pop culture, and how until we do something to curb the demand for sex, really the supply for sex is going to exist, because there's going to be a way to meet that demand. So after graduating from Wheaton, I just didn't feel ready for law school, and decided that I was going to take some time to work with IJM. So I got accepted as an intern and moved to Chennai, India, and I spent 10.5 months with the office there, where I worked in the admin department. So I was assisting the director of administration and in charge of the hiring process for the office, and then also assisted the field director there when he came. And so I wouldn't say I was able to have a lot of direct involvement with clients. A couple times I was able to participate on a rescue operation, which is just incredible, because...
Yeah, what was that like?
When you think of justice, it seems like just something very vague, and you don't often get to see it as something tangible and see it take place in front of you. So to get to go on a rescue operation, and the people are literally in bondage and just fearful. We meet there, and you come and you show up with probably 4 to 5 police officers were there, and a team of maybe 12 of us, and then a government official, and we go onto the facility. And the owners, it was of a rice mill, and they're really scared, and so they let the people go, and you bring them back to a government center, and they're questioned to see if they really are bonded laborers, if they're really enslaved. And even the transformation that takes place over that day, these children are coming in. There's young kids, and they're coming in very fearful. We bring them Beanie Babies and crayons, and they've really never had that before. So first they don't even want, they're, who's this white person? Obviously they're a little fearful, and then they start to open up. And by the end of the day, I rode back with them on the bus to their village, and they had been in slavery, I think, for 7 years. So some of the kids had never left the facility, and so seeing the real world for the first time. And we pulled into their village at night, and it was really hot. It was in June, so people were sleeping outside their family. And this bus pulled up, and the family sits up, the extended family, having not seen these people for 7 years. And just the joy that you experienced of them connecting again, it was just really, really powerful.
Yeah,
to see in one day people woke up in bondage, and by the end they were free, and they'd been granted that freedom, and with their family. Yeah. And they actually had hope that their kids were going to grow up and have a future. So yeah, I came back from India in April and started working with International Justice Mission again at their DC headquarters in July. So now I'm responsible for supporting our 5 offices that we have now in South Asia, and then I support our director here at HQ, who is responsible for all of those offices. So it's been really great to be involved in the work, and I have no idea where it's going to take me, but I really do look back to how I know about these issues, and it was from the Price of Life event, because had I gone to Wheaton, and that was my plan, my dream of going to a Christian school, an academic school, and I was devastated. I felt like a failure. But looking back, it was just God's sovereignty and his hand in my life. Of he brought me to Michigan State. He somehow brought me to this event. I have no idea why I went. And through that, just shifted the course of my life. And I really, I think God could have opened my eyes other ways, but I don't know if it would have been as quickly or where I would be today had I not gone to that event and had my eyes open.
That's great. And very encouraging to me.
It was a great event. I would love to participate in it if I have the opportunity to.
Yeah, you should come up to New York.
I would love to.
That'd be great. All right, thanks.
Thanks.